Thanks everybody for joining. I hope you can hear me well. My name is Fabian. I'm your host for today for this webinar, which is called How to Successfully Launch Your App Out of Asia. This is a live webinar, one of the ones that we've done in the past, where we invite a partner with a lot of knowledge and expertise in a given area, and then they are the ones sharing their extensive knowledge with you guys. With me today, we have Addict Mobile, who's our partner, and joining from Addict Mobile is Grégoire Mercier, who's the CEO of this ROI-focused mobile agency with extensive experience in mobile app marketing. And on the Ttest side is Matteo Coletta, who's the technical senior account manager here at Ttest, also working together with Addict Mobile. My name is Fabian, and yeah, I would like to present to you some of the housekeeping to look at first before we get started. So the whole webinar will be around 35 minutes. There'll be some time, of course, as always, for questions and answers, but you can ask your questions at any time via this question panel that you see on the right-hand side in GoToWebinar. So there you just pop in your question, we'll note them down and then answer them at the end as well as we can. Of course, as always, there'll be a recording, and we'll also share the slides via email, so you don't have to take extensive notes. We'll make sure that you have all the materials after the webinar in your inbox. Yeah, I think it's a super exciting topic. I think there's many of you out there that are successful in Asia and then want to take the next step and launch your app in new markets. And with new markets and different cultures and ways of doing business come new challenges. And I think there's nobody better than Grégoire to basically deep dive and share some of his experiences firsthand from how to take a strategy from one country to another and be successful there as well. So without further ado, I would like to pass it on to Grégoire.
Hello everybody, nice to meet you and thanks for joining this webinar. So as Fabian said, I am a CEO and founder of Addict. Just a few words about Addict. We are a company expert in promoting mobile apps worldwide. The founders of Addict are ex-employees of Amazon and Gameloft. So myself, I was managing user acquisition at Gameloft for a couple of years. We have just been acquired by a company expert in user acquisition on mobile. This company is Digital Virgo. Today, Digital Virgo and Addict is one of the worldwide leader in ROI-focused user acquisition for mobile products. We spend more than $100 million per year in marketing budget on mobile. We are managing media buying on more than 500 sources. We have in-house dedicated technologies in order to optimize the campaigns on all traffic sources of the market. For example, social networks like Facebook, Google, ad networks, video networks. And we work for leading companies. All these companies are focusing on quality users. We work, for example, with e-commerce apps like Amazon. We work for BlaBlaCar, which is a car-sharing leader company worldwide. We work with some game developers like Bandai Namco or Ubisoft. So today I will talk about how to launch your app out of Asia in Western countries. There will be four main parts in this presentation. First, what to prepare before the acquisition. Then how to manage your creatives. What to do when you launch your apps, which are the key KPIs, the key metrics that you must follow, and what you can expect in every market. And we'll finish with what to measure inside your app and how to manage it to maximize your performance. So before acquisition, several topics. The first one is quite obvious. I guess that most of you know it, but you must absolutely integrate a tracking SDK like Ttest. Of course, the main reason is to track and see where the downloads come from. But the key point is especially to track what happens inside your app per traffic source. And then you must absolutely track in-app events and implement them. A key benefit in using a Western tracking tool like Ttest coming from Western countries is the fact that often they also track key sources like Facebook or Google. So of course, I guess that most of you integrate a tracking tool. What some clients don't do is tracking events after the click and the install, whereas it's absolutely key to think about what you track. So you must track everything happening inside your app that is relevant at some key points inside the app and inside the life cycle of a user. For example, inside a game, you can implement as well tutorial, so all the users that finish a tutorial, reaching a specific level, for example, level 3, 5, 10. The best is to track short-term level, medium-term level, and long-term levels to follow all the life of a user. And of course, in-app purchase in order to track the ROI of your campaigns. So please think about it when you start user acquisition, implement a proper SDK, and implement efficient in-app events to optimize your marketing campaigns. Another key point is to make your launch successful by making sure that your app is ready when you launch it in every country. So what we do with most of our clients is organizing soft launch in some specific countries in order to make sure that the app is good quality. Some clients ask me sometimes, which countries can I target? What we are used to do on our side is focusing either on very English-speaking countries like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, if you want to assess the potential of your app in the English-speaking countries, especially for, of course, the US. If you want to assess in a broader perspective, you can also target, for example, Nordic countries in Europe, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, Netherlands. Because these countries, people are used to speak English, so it's easy for you to have an app in English and test your app there. And these guys have also a more European way of life and European tastes, and then it allows you to test both English-speaking countries, Anglo-Saxon countries, and European territories. If it's easier for you, you can also target Asian countries like Hong Kong, Taiwan, or why not Filipino, if you want to test with a cheaper marketing budget, with a lot of downloads, and with English-speaking people. Even if the monetization is not good, it allows you to test the retention of the users. Another key point, and here also for Asian clients, there is always a kind of issue there. It's making sure that your RSO, App Store optimization, is optimal. What is RSO? It's thinking about every topics of your App Store page. Why? Because actually a lot of downloads come from the App Stores directly, from the search tools and from the ranking on Google Play and iOS App Store. So on our side, we work specifically before every launch with a client on all his App Store page. So we give advices and recommendations, and we can even produce icon of the app to make sure that the icon is relevant for Western users. The title, you must also optimize it. For example, push some keywords inside or making the title very clear of what your app is. The screenshots, of course, they must be very clear, clean, and users must understand what your app is. Description, and please make sure that your description is localized and efficient. And of course, keywords that you can implement inside the keyword list of Apple or inside the title or the description of the app. So it's really key, because if your App Store page is not attractive, the users won't download it, and then you will decrease your volume of downloads and you will increase your cost per install. So you must absolutely think in a Western way in order to make your App Store page relevant for Western users. Some examples of increase in conversion rates that we had with some clients. This is Eredan from a client named Frederick. These were the first screenshots at the beginning. We gave some advices and produced some new screenshots that allowed to increase the conversion rate by 30%, which is quite big. It means that for the same marketing budget, you generate 130 installs instead of 100. So you can really get more installs with the same marketing budget. Same for a car sharing company named CityGo. We also optimized the screenshots of the app and increased the conversion rate by nearly 20%. So 5 key points for your App Store page. First, you are allowed to put up to 5 screenshots. So please do it. Don't put 2, 3, 4, just put 5. Your screenshots are not forced to be real in-app or in-game screenshots. You can mix artworks, so fake screenshots, and real in-game screenshots. So it allows you to make your App Store page more appealing. If you put some text, which is a good idea, put short text, just few words, like 2, 3, 4 words maximum, not more. Localize it in every country. If you put it only in English, It's really a shame because in some countries, like in France, Italy, Spain, Germany, people will understand, but it will be a kind of barrier for them. So they won't be very willing to download the app if it's not in their own language. So localize it in every language. And you can do some A/B tests, especially on Google Play. You can put different keywords, different screenshots, different descriptions, and different keywords, and you can A/B test between these variants. So please A/B test. It allows you to understand what works well, and then you can push the ones that perform good. The second part of the presentation will especially focus on the creatives, which is a key part, of course, of the user acquisition, and which is especially sometimes a bit tricky for Asian app developers because they are not used to Western habits, Western likes of the users. So the first point is that on mobile, of course, there are many different sizes of screen, which makes the user acquisition more complicated because you have a lot of different sizes to cover. So how to come up with it? So first, you have absolutely to think about the fact that the banner is on a small screen. It can look like obvious sometimes, but here is an example of bad banner. It's a banner for an advertising for McDonald's. You don't see really what is on this banner. It's very blurred. Its text is small. The banner is not even full, so it doesn't take all the screen. So it's a typical example of banner which is not thought for mobile and which is not adapted to every screen. So it's not a good banner. So what we recommend on our side is making banners simple, especially for Western countries. In Europe and in the US, users need to have very clean and clear banners with few elements on the banners. So make it simple. Second point is make it flashy. Try to put some flashy colors so that the people see the advertising and focus on it. And put some text, but very short text, once again, 2 to 3 words maximum, not too much. So make it simple, make it flashy, and make it short if you put some text. You must adapt your banner in every size. So on mobile, you have up to 100 different sizes, depending on the size of the screens. So you have to work on it, and you have to adapt your banner. So of course, for interstitials, so large banners, it's obvious what to do. For small ones, sometimes it's not that obvious. So this is an example for a game named Mino Monsters. It's like Pokemon. We have worked on it for about 2 years. And you see 2 banners which are not the same size. So it's for iPad and iPhone. And you can see that it's the same banner, but a bit different. On the smaller one, we have withdraw the free tag and the arrows in order to make the banner simpler and cleaner. So you can adapt your banners in such a way in order to make it more efficient for every size of screen. You must A/B test your creatives as well. So it's an example for Caros, which is a taxi app. You can see that with very small differences, here the banner on the right, just the background is a bit red compared to the left, and we increase the conversion rate by 15% just by doing this slight change. So you can have huge differences just by A/B testing your creatives. Same example for L'Express, which is a media application. Between the 2 versions, we decreased the CPI by 3.5, which is big. So you can really grab some conversion rate performance just by making A/B tests on small part of your banner. Last example is for Vente Privée, which is an e-commerce application very popular in Europe. We just made some tests on some shoes and colors of the shoes. And what we noticed is that some specific shoes were performing better than others. And as you can see, we sometimes increase the conversion rate, the click-through rate, print to click by 2. So it's quite big. You can have huge differences. Last comment on this creative part is that the conversion rates can also depend on the countries. So with the same banner, you can have different conversion, print to click, it's CTR, and click to install, it's CVR. So you can see 2 examples for a game, which is named Primal Legend from a European developer named Kobojo. And as you can see, we test a lot of different banners in every market, and we can see big differences. So what we try to do on our side is having a different strategy per country. So we localize the strategy, and we push different banners per country because we notice that the users in every country can have different tastes. So to sum up, the process on our side, and I recommend to do the same for you, on our side, we have decided to build an internal design team, creative team, in order to produce ourselves the banners to be more efficient. So we try to cover all the formats, banners, interstitials, videos. We cover up to 100 sizes. We cover up to 15 languages in order to have very local banners. And we do a lot of A/B tests, and we refresh the banners every week, sometimes every day on specific sources like Facebook. And really, it's a good way in order to maximize your performance per country through the banners. Third part, how to launch your app. So you have done everything that is required in the first part. So you have a good App Store optimization, you have implemented a tracking tool. You have also produced some efficient banners. The third part is how to launch your app. So, as you know, the higher you are in the App Store of a country, the more downloads you generate. So, for example, in France, if you are top 1 of the App Store, you generate about 30K installs per day on iOS. If you are top 25, you generate only 5,000 to 6,000 installs. So you have a big difference depending on your App Store ranking. And then your goal, basically, is to be as high as possible in the ranking in order to maximize your volume of download. So how to do it? When you launch your app, you will try at the beginning to do a lot of user acquisition using different sources. For example, Facebook, Vangirl, AdColony, InMobi, Google, Snapchat, and so on. So your goal at the launch is to be as high as possible in order to do a big buzz and generate a lot of downloads. You can do this buzz with other ways, for example, Apple featuring, but it's complicated to have Apple featuring. So you have to think about user acquisition in your launch strategy. You can expect additional organic installs because you are higher in the ranking. So you can expect, for example, between plus 30 and plus 100% downloads the first day of the user acquisition. And about 1 week after this big push, if you stop doing user acquisition, your app will still be visible in the App Store, but it will start decreasing in the rankings day per day, and then you will generate less and less organic installs. Still, on 1 week, you can expect up to 100% additional organic installs through your user acquisition the first day. Of course, if your app is successful, you don't do user acquisition only at the very beginning. You will try to sustain your marketing efforts. So every day you will keep buying some installs and you will expect some additional organic installs every day. So here is a short way to do calculation or organic uplift. For example, if you don't buy any installs, maybe your organic installs are 30 installs per day in one country. If you start buying 200 installs, you notice that your organic installs increase to 70 installs per day. And if you buy 500, it goes up to 200. And then you can do calculation in order to estimate your percentage of additional organic install thanks to user acquisition. So on our side, we take into account all these organic installs in our user acquisition strategy in order to maximize the overall ROI and profitability of the campaigns. Focusing on the sources, you have also to think about where to buy installs. So of course, you have some popular sources like Facebook and Google, but you have many others. For example, Snapchat and Pinterest opened recently the capacity to do user acquisition for app installs. And you have a lot of different sources like ad networks, affiliates, DSP, ad exchange, incentivize the installs if you want the cheap installs to go high in the rankings and so on. So on our side at Addict, our technology is plugged on more than 500 sources and we buy on all these sources. So one key point to understand is that your user acquisition sources can depend on the countries where you buy installs. For example, in Germany, YouTube is more popular on average than in other territories. Same example for Italy or Spain, Twitter is very popular, whereas in France, it's not that popular. In Russia, Facebook doesn't exist, or it's very small. So you should focus on VK. So you can also adapt your strategy per country and buy different traffic sources. Same per application. You can have different performance depending on every app. For example, L'Express, it's a media application in Europe. What we noticed on our side is that Facebook has higher CPIs than ad networks, and Google is better than ad networks as well. Whereas for wine on demand, which is an e-commerce application for wines, we notice that Facebook is much better than Google, which is also much better than ad networks. And if we take Price Minister, which is an e-commerce application that belongs to Rakuten, the Japanese company, Google performs better than Facebook, otherwise it was not the case with wine on demand. So we notice a lot of differences depending on the sources, and then it's good to A/B test everything to see what is good for your app. Basically, the main rule for user acquisition is go into the granularity of the performance, for example, per country, per application, per source, but also on subsources based on demography, interest, per creative, and so on. So sometimes you will have good performance in one country on one OS and bad performance on another country. So if you analyze everything overall, maybe your user acquisition is not profitable. But if you dig into the details, if you focus on specific countries, specific creatives, specific OS, specific sources, maybe you can be profitable. So I will give you some examples. Here, it's the performance of a game that we have worked on. You can see the number of downloads per age and the CPI, RPU, revenue, and so on. So what you notice is that the bigger volume of installs comes from lower ages, from young people. The cost per install is also quite small compared to other ages. But what we notice is that the RPU, the average revenue per user, is pretty small. If you compare to older people, the RPU is much bigger. And the CPI is a bit higher, but not that high. So what we notice eventually on this user acquisition strategy is that the profitable installs are on older people. So what we should is just cut off all the young people campaigns and focus only on the older people, even if the CPI is a bit higher, but at least we are profitable. So it's a good example to see that you can have some good performance sometimes, whereas overall it's not good. Same example per country for the same game. What we notice is that actually the US, which has the higher CPI, is in fact the more profitable country. So we should cut off everything and focus only on the more expensive country, the US. So all this, going into the details of the performance per day, per country, per OS, per source, per sub-source, per creative, requires to dig into the data and analyze everything. So on our side at Addict, we have built technologies that allow us to optimize really into the details instead of just checking overall what happens. You must also pay attention to the fraud. I know that a lot of you know the fraud and suffer from the fraud. So on our side also, we focus a lot on it. We analyze the traffic. We have specific tools in order to check the incentivized installs, the bots, the fake organic installs, and so on. And we cut it off and we don't pay. So pay attention to fraud as well. To finish this part, I will just give you a few slides on an example of media plan. So this is, for example, the ranking of your application in the App Store. The higher the curve is, the higher you are in the ranking. So before the blue line, there is no user acquisition. After, you can see that there is a burst. So it means that we buy a lot of installs to go very high in the ranking. After, we sustain the user acquisition about 2 weeks, and then we cut off everything. What we notice is that the burst lasted about 48 hours. We spent about $10K to generate 12K installs. So it allows us to go in the top 10 rankings of the App Store with a CPI below $1. During the sustain phase, we only focus on high quality users. Then we buy good quality users at higher CPI. So we spend about $20K on 2 weeks for about 10K installs, so CPI at about $2. And we sustain the app at about the position top 150 in the App Store. So this is an example of matrix that sums up everything. It's a kind of media plan. So the first week we spent about $15K to buy about 15K installs. We generated an organic uplift of about plus 70%, whereas after the first week, the organic uplift is lower because we have purchased less installs. So it's just an example, but the summary is having in mind the fact that you can have different strategies depending on the very beginning of the launch of your app and the sustained phases after that can last as long as your user acquisition is profitable. So when you build a media plan, you have to have such kind of strategy to think about how much you spend per download at different phases and what kind of organic uplift you can expect. This example is a good example for one country which is medium size. For example, France, Italy, Spain, UK, Germany. These are more or less some KPIs that we can have in terms of volume of installs and CPI. But it will depend on the countries. For example, if you target the US, what you can notice is that to be top one in the App Store ranking on iOS, you must generate 300K downloads per day. On Google Play, 500K. Whereas in France, you divide by about 10. So to be number one in the ranking on iOS, you generate about 30K installs. And such figures depend on every country. So overall in the US, for example, every day on iOS and Android, you can get about 800K installs, whereas in Italy, it will be only 60K. So you will build your media plan in every country, depending on the size of the country. And you will also build your media plan depending on the price, the cost in every country. So this is an example of CPI cost in every geo with a basis of 100. For example, if a CPI is $100 in France, it will be $130 in the US and 80 in Spain. So you will also build your media strategy depending on the CPI in every country. Last point, you will also adapt your media strategy, your media plan, depending on the CPI and depending on what is your app. So this is an example in France of expected CPI about for a good quality user, depending on the genre of the app. If your app is a gaming app, a media app, an e-commerce app, a travel app, and so on, you will have different range of CPI. That's it. So it was just a global overview to give you some insight and understanding of how the user acquisition can be managed in Western countries and specificities per countries. I will now give the end to Matteo to follow up on the fourth part.
First of all, please allow me to say a few words about Ttest. The company was founded in 2012 by Christian Henschel, Paul Müller, and Manuel Kniep. We began as a small attribution company based in Berlin, but we have now expanded with 14 offices worldwide and more than 150 employees. We've recently launched full support for the domestic Chinese market, and we have now over 22,000 integrated SDKs. We also work with a growing list of more than 900 integrated partners. For 2012, Ttest decided to focus on some of the biggest issues one could face in the mobile measurement challenges. First of all, data transparency is key. What are the resources you're investing, and what is the ROI that is driven by your campaigns? We would try to create a tool that allows you to see everything in one place. So how many installs you drive, how much they cost you, and how much the users you acquire are spending. Second problem is the fragmentation. We found out that most of our clients are using several different tools to measure their campaigns. For example, measurement partners to see the installs, but then they use their own BIs and they connect via some APIs to networks to get the cost of their campaigns, which is very time-consuming and resource-intensive on their side. So we launched 3 big features. First of all, hourly data through ROI and the audience builder. Hourly data is self-explanatory. It allows you to see your data by hour and to see in which times of the day your users are more likely to interact with some of your creatives and when you should interact with them. It also allows you to see your reports by time zones if you're launching your app in several continents. We are currently supporting all of the time zones. The real ROI feature as I mentioned, allows you to compare your CPM, CPI, and CPC for all your marketing partners, and compare the revenue generated by the users, so that you can keep investing on the sources that bring you the best users, and cut the ad spend in the less profitable sources. And finally, the audience builder is a tool that allows you to create custom segments and to share these segments with ad networks, so that you can effectively re-engage your users and, for example, target the users who haven't created an account yet. Or, for example, you already have a very successful app and you are launching another app and you would like to cross-promote your app. So basically get the best users from the first app and target them with ads so that they also install your second app and contribute to its success. We would like to share a few tips on how to use Adjust. First of all, customize your reports. We offer several types of reports, and each one of them has filters that allow you to filter the data by country, or to view the data by source, by date, or by platform, so that, for example, you can see the difference between iOS and Android. Well, as Grégoire mentioned, fraud is a big problem in the digital ad tech industry. Adjust is using several algorithms to filter out fraud actively, so that the installs are immediately rejected and the networks are informed about the reason for which we rejected the installs, and they can optimize on their side and cut off the sources that are driving fraudulent installs. And our platform allows you to see the quality of the networks by comparing the percentage of rejected installs, for example. A very powerful tool offered by Adjust is the Cohort Analysis. It's a tool that allows you to see, to understand your user base. So not only to see the amount of installs, but also the retention rate of the users. How likely are they to come back into your app after the installs? Or how long does it take until they create an account or complete the first level of your gaming app? And of course, you can see all the data by source and apply all the filters that I've shown in the previous slide. Finally, test your creatives. We offer you the possibility to measure not just the creatives, but also the campaigns and the ad groups. So where you run your campaign, who you're targeting, and the creatives you're using. But as Grégoire mentioned, it's very important to compare the effectiveness of different sizes of your creatives, or different changes that you make, such as the colors and so on. So with Adjust, you can really drill down to the bottom level of your campaign and make really data-driven decisions.
All right. Thank you very much, Grégoire and Matteo, for those two presentations and the actionable insights. What we had planned now, and we're perfectly on time, it's 10:35 European time, that we will now take about 10 minutes to answer any questions that you may have. If you have more questions, please send them our way and we'll see if we can take them still. The first question that we have is for Grégoire from Addict, and it's around the language of the campaigns. So Grégoire, the question for you was, can we focus marketing campaigns on English-speaking countries when we launch an app in Western countries? Maybe you can answer this question for our listeners.
Yes, okay. So English is the main language for user acquisition because it allows you to target, of course, large areas like US, Canada, Australia, UK. So it's the key language, I would say. You have to focus on it. It's the first one. So during the soft launch period, it's quite good to focus on English-speaking countries. That's what I said in one of the slides. Nevertheless, when you global launch your app, so when you launch it globally in all territories, you really must focus on localizing your text in all the main languages, which means German, Italian, Spanish, French, Brazilian, Russian, because it has really a huge impact on the conversion rates. So I really recommend first during the soft launch period maybe to focus on one language, and English is a good one. And once you are sure about the quality of your app and you are sure about the profitability, and when you want to go global, I really advise to focus on localization, translate your ads, your App Store page, and maybe your app in at least 5 to 10 languages in order to be efficient and find profitability in these countries. Otherwise, it may not work that much. It will work a bit, but not that much.
Great, thanks. I think those are some great pieces of advice. The next question we had was for Matteo. It was regarding the networks that he mentioned. I think on one slide you had 900 integrated partners. So the question was, what if I'm working with a partner that Ttest is currently not integrated with? What's kind of the procedure and how would that integration work out?
Well, Ttest has a API for networks that allows them to be integrated in a matter of minutes. We have very clear documentation and a flexible structure of building your tracking URLs so that any network can really start tracking in a matter of minutes.
Cool, thanks. So it seems like it's easier than people might think. And of course, as Grégoire mentioned, the sources and the channels that are delivering good performance in Western countries might be completely different to the ones that you guys are using to drive success and installs for your app in Asia. So I think that's very important that there is a lot of support already out there with dedicated integrations that exist. But if you have a network that you work with that you would like to continue work with that doesn't integrate with Ttest, that's obviously possible to do so as well. The next question that we get was also for Addict, for Grégoire.
Yes.
Grégoire, you mentioned it already a bit in some of the slides. Typically, what kind of marketing budget should we look at when launching an app in Western countries? So during a soft launch, and maybe also you could compare it to a global launch.
Yes, it's a question that many clients are asking us, actually. Most of the Asian clients who are working with, and when they launch a new app, they don't know exactly what to expect. So it depends a lot on your ambitions. So do you want to go global, big, or do you want to go at a smaller level? I think there are two parts. The first one is soft launch. So when you launch your app in only a few countries to test it and optimize it. So for example, let's say that you are going to launch a game in 3 countries for the soft launch, like Canada, Australia, and Sweden. For these 3 countries, during the soft launch period, you may spend about between $20K and $40K per month. So $20,000 to $40,000 per month to acquire good level of installs in every country during 30 days and get enough data to optimize. So this is during the soft launch, about 20 to 30 to 40K per month. For a global launch, actually it will depend a lot on the potential of your app. So you will assess and estimate the potential of your app during the soft launch. And here, if you think that your app has good potential, you can increase your budget. And then here, it depends a lot. But we have clients spending from about 100K for the global launch for 1 month. So $100K for maybe 3 to 5 countries. And we have some other clients targeting up to $1 to $3 million for a global launch on 1 month because they want to be very aggressive, they want to go high in the ranking, and they want to focus on many countries in parallel. For example, US, Canada, Australia, plus Italy, Spain, France, Germany, UK. So depending on the potential of your app, I would say that in global, you may expect about between 100K and 1 to 2 million. And if you need an average, let's say 500K or 300, 400, 500K about for a global launch.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for giving us those estimates. I think one of the things that is kind of a follow-up question to the budgets that we estimate for doing such a successful soft launch or global launch would also be the time frame that people have to look at when trying to do a launch abroad. So Grégoire, also like another question for you would be when I have an app that is very successful in my own market, for example, and I plan to go abroad, how many months will it take to do either a soft launch or a global launch and prepare for those phases of growth?
Yes, it's a good question. It's also a question that many clients ask. They don't know exactly what to expect in terms of timing. So first, it will depend on how your app is organized to go global. For example, do you have already good App Store page? Do you already have a Western tracking tool? Do you already have many creatives ready or not? I would say that for the soft launch period, you may expect between 2 to 5 months about in order to test in a couple of countries and get data and optimize. So here it will depend on the quality of your app from the beginning. If your app is already successful in one market, for example in China, I guess that the game may not have that many bugs, for example, and then maybe the soft launch period can be short. If your app has some issues, bugs or monetization problems, maybe you need more time. And then here you can go up to 5, 6, 7 months, sometimes more. So depending on the clients, I would recommend a soft launch period between 2 to 6 months. And if it's a very big app, very critical and very important, it can go sometimes up to 9 to 12 months. For the global launch, but you will do it just after the soft launch. So you can expect it to last about 1 month, but you can make it last longer and you can spend more money if your app is very successful. So overall, let's say that today you want to launch your app out of your native country. Expect about 1 to 2 months of preparation for tracking tool, creatives, App Store optimization. About 2 to 6 months for soft launch, maybe more if your app is not ready or if it's a very big app and you really want to take enough time to optimize it. And after global launch, 1 month to more if your app performs well.
Perfect. I think that was a great answer, very comprehensive. I hope that you listeners also found it useful. With that being said, I would like to actually wrap it up for today. That was today's webinar with Addict Mobile and Ttest. 2 things that I take away that I think are super important for everybody trying to launch an app abroad would be to, 1, be very, very local and be hyper localized where possible. So I think what Grégoire explained and showed us very well was that the more granular you can go in terms of your localization, the better you will perform in the markets that you try to enter. And the second thing, I think also speaking to Matteo and what Ttest can deliver is being data-driven and kind of using data to test and optimize and always improve, be it the creatives, be it the sources that you look at, be it the CPI that you buy for, and then basically use that knowledge to constantly improve the campaigns that you're running abroad. So those are the 2 learnings that I had. As said at the very beginning, this is obviously not our last webinar. We do at least 1 per month. And the slides and the recording of this webinar will also be shared with you afterwards. So with that being said, thanks again, Grégoire from Addict Mobile and Matteo for presenting on Ttest side. It was a pleasure to be a host today for this webinar. I hope you walk away with some actionable insights and have a successful launch of your app abroad.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.